All right, what's going on, everyone? King here, back from another video. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to be reacting to a speech that Queen Quet gave at a Juneteenth celebration in Georgia. And some of the things she said really hit home with me, being that I'm involved in my family's heir property, as well as going to court, try to preserve and protect their property through legal action. But she spoke of some things that make sense that I've been trying to accomplish for the past few years since 2017 through two litigations now. The first one to quiet the title, and now the second one to basically request the court to fully quiet the title, to initiate a deed to the property and remove those individuals who claim to be heirs to property, remove them from being involved in the heir property, living on their property, and so forth and so forth. So really get to the truth. But she said some things in here, and rather me speak on it, I just let the video play, and then at the end of it, I'll give my reaction to it, my thoughts on it. All right, here it goes.
Fortunately, that is where Gullah Geechees now are, where some have been locked out of their own homeland, and now they want to learn how to get their land back. And I said the first thing you need to do is learn how to hold on to the land your family has. I don't care if it's a half an acre, hold on to it. Learn your rights about that land, learn the history of how it was obtained, who obtained it, and every year have a pool of money ready to pay that tax. If we can raise money to buy sneakers, we can raise money to pay land tax. If we can drive cars with rims on them, and we can get it all, come on, y'all know I'm telling the truth. If we can drive cars with rims on them, we can pay land tax. We can also purchase more land if we stop purchasing cars, because land is an appreciating asset. I don't care what they tell you. You will always be able to do something with land. That's why people want to push you off it. You can feed yourself from it if that land is healed. If you want the water, you sure enough can feed yourself from the land and the waterway. It don't take a whole lot to learn how to do that, as long as we also do things that are healthy to the land and for the land and on the land, so that we can sustain the coastline and we can sustain the water quality. And by virtue of sustaining water quality, we will sustain not only fisheries health, but human health. And we can produce a stronger generation instead of a weaker one, that realizes where the value is when you can have a place and a space that you call your own, where you and your family can gather together and continue the traditions, and someone older can teach you, but to learn, you must be teachable. If you know everything and you think Google is God, you can forget it. Because Google is not God, and that comes from me, who is a computer scientist that graduated with honors. We program you through this. This is a personal digital assistant. We done taught you to call it a cell phone. It ain't a phone. It's a computer. But what I need to program you to do is use it to research your rights, to know your rights, to have study groups teaching family members at the family reunion what our family legacy is on the land. The first thing that happens if you go to an heirs property lawyer is say, my cousins are now, that's another issue, fighting me over land. They're going to ask you to create a family tree. Why? Because that family tree is going to determine in court who owns the most interest in the property, and whether you have an interest in it or not. Because if they find out you were one of them children they raised, you've adopted, but there ain't no real adoption papers, you won't have any rights at all. It'll only be those heirs. Remember when I said that 1862 deed that all the way through all the lands, and at the end said, and their heirs. So the thing that I want you to be is an heir apparent that appears to have some sense, some common sense, that you put with some dollars and cents, to not only hold on to land, but to also be in a position to create an estate plan that then passes down that land through a family LLC a limited liability corporation, where that family sets rules and bylaws and regulations that says if somebody dies without a will, it doesn't just become heirs property all over again, but it actually transfers into that trust that is for the family, that is that family LLC. Because then everybody in that family, the heirs to come, will have their interest in it. They will have shares in it, and you need clauses that say it should never be sold out of your family. Now you can always buy more collective family property together and enter it into that LLC, but that nobody is ever to sell any property out of that LLC.
Okay, so she says some very interesting things, especially when it comes to proving how you're heir to property. When you first go to a lawyer, the first thing I'm going to ask for is that family tree. And in that family tree, they may discover that you're not the heir, or those individuals who claim to be heirs are not heirs because they were raised by so and so, but they were not legally adopted. Or by chance, as they're saying that they're heirs of property, but they're not in that actual family tree. They're not in the actual bloodline. If you look at the definition of an heir, in order to be an heir, right, you have to be what? By blood, by birth, by marriage, and legal adoption, to include children born out of wedlock. But if those children, raised children, do not count. And children that are born out of wedlock have to be what? Have to be the child of an individual who's on the deed, or individuals that are on a deed. So if there's a child born out of wedlock, say the father, such a case, in this case, Washington James had a mistress, and from that relationship with his mistress has 7 children born out of wedlock. But those are his children, but he's not married to his mistress. Therefore, she's not an heir. Her children are heirs if his name is on the original deed, but her name is not. So they're not heirs. She's not an heir because she's not his wife. And if she had a son or a child, another child from another man, from another relationship, that child is not an heir of Washington James. Right? Even though they have the same mother, even though his children, right, and that child has the same mother being the mistress, being his mistress, they're not heirs. And that's a conundrum, especially when they're your cousins, right? When they're a distant cousin and they consider a family, but they're not heirs to property because they're not along that bloodline. That's part of the reason why to go to the court, go to see a lawyer to determine, hey, who are heirs of property, who has ownership of this property, right? It's part of the preservation process. It's part of the preserving the property and protecting the property from outsiders, land developers, those who want to acquire their property, legalized theft, protect that from legalized theft. That's why you do it. And she hit the nail on the head. She basically described what needs to be done, what happens, what needs to be done when you go to the court and you got to prove that you were heir to property, not just by testimony, verbal testimony, but physical evidence. And now, in some cases, there's a report that was done in December 2022, last year, a study by a committee to determine how to resolve the heir property, and if the act that was enacted by Governor Haley in 2017 is actually working. And so we had a panel of people that were on the committee that did the research and came there to answer questions and have a dialogue discussion. But now you can no longer just rely on verbal testimony as well as evidence, or if there is no evidence, how do you prove that you were heir to property? By DNA, right? Researching the DNA, determine that, okay, you were heir to property by DNA, or you're not heir because it's not a DNA match. That's what needs to be done. And she also talked about, she also mentioned that, to be an heir apparent, to be that person that has the knowledge, right? The mindset, the intellect, the education, right? To use the rules and laws to reserve and protect their property, but not just your brain power, your mindset, the capability, but also have the financial capability, have the dollars to go along with your mental sense, your knowledge and power, right, to put a good use to preserve and take that property, because these lawyers and judges and everybody else are not going to do it for free. To create a deed to the property is not going to be free, right? You're going to need money to pay the taxes. You're going to need money for the upkeep of the property. You're going to need money to establish that, what she say, a land trust, a LLC, and bring that to the people and explain to the people that, hey, here's why we need this. Here's what needs to happen. And I try to do that. Since 2017, when I got involved in the property, to resolve the property, to acquire title to property, it was not just me. It was who? My late grandmother, who died at 92 in 2020, and 3 of her children, right? Well, me makes 5 that were involved, that was known as plaintiffs in the case, because the individuals that were named as defendants in the case claimed to have ownership of the property by way of what? Being heirs to the property by those on original deeds of the property. But come to find out, some of them were not. So that's why we're still in this legal fight. But it wasn't just me. My members of my family knew. Members of my family who were named as defendants in the first case from 2011 to 2015 went to a law firm that was based out of Columbia, South Carolina, and the lawyer, the law firm, drafted a letter explaining the process, how to acquire a title and what needed to be done. And the first order of business was to determine who were heirs by building that family tree. And even when I got involved again in 2017, when I hired the lawyer, the first order of business was, hey Cliff, we need a family tree. Build out a family tree. So me, members of my family, 3 of my grandmother's children, 3 of my mother's siblings, built that family tree 2 weekends on the road. For 2 weekends, we put together the family tree and gave it to a lawyer to draft the order, to draft the complaint. And we brought it before the court. You know, this is very significant. This is very important. I'm glad she said that. I'm glad she spoke at this Juneteenth lecture and gave insight to the problems, and you know, but more so, she was talking about the history of the Gullah Geechee Nation, the Gullah Geechee people, and the different laws and actions that were taken to take land from these people, from indigenous people, the African slaves, the Africans, the Gullah Geechee people. And I'm not sure yet, but my mother talks about that you know, my Papa Sim was Gullah Geechee. He was Geechee, right? Something I need to look into, something I need to talk to her about, Queen Quet, and do my research. But that's true. That's even better. That's even more significant, because you know, we can claim to be part of this nation, and maybe we'll have some of the legal backing, the legal status to say, hey, let's protect our property under the flag, under the name Gullah Geechee. And let's establish generational wealth, and let's establish let's continue to grow the legacy of our forefathers and mothers and those who came before us, the free men and women. But I was speaking long enough. I just want to share this video, react to this video. I think it's very important. I think it really hits home to what I've been trying to accomplish for the past 4 or 5 years. Now, it's unfortunate that it's taking my time, energy, and money to get to this point, but I can't quit. I can't stop. I have to keep going. Even if it's just me and my mother that are in it, that get to understand it, and there's no one else speaking up or standing up and coming to our aid, coming to our defense, coming to support us, that's fine. We'll do it ourselves. We just gotta, you know, stay strong, support each other, and keep going. Right? But the light's at the end of the tunnel. You know, the intent, our purpose is there for a reason. It's good. So with that said, I appreciate you watching. Give this video a thumbs up, like this video, share this video, leave a comment, and I'll see you in another video. Take care. Peace.